There are many places with extraordinary realities, but you would certainly never imagine a country where the government creates taxes to discourage polygamy, where poverty is so extreme that many women see prostitution as the only way out, and social inequality is so vast that the rich live in luxury while the poor struggle to survive. One of the most overcrowded and dirtiest places on the planet, with street stalls that would shock you and where you would hardly stop to eat. A country where a man can have up to 4 wives as long as he can support them, despite the government's surprising attempts to prevent this. In this video, we will explore the dark secrets of Bangladesh. Get ready to be surprised. Overpopulation in Bangladesh is, without a doubt, one of the biggest challenges the country faces. With a population density exceeding 1,200 people per square kilometer, the consequences are visible in all aspects of daily life. Cities are overwhelmed, resulting in a scenario where the struggle for basic resources like water, food, and space becomes a constant battle. In many cases, families live in small apartments or even in slums, where the lack of space and privacy is the norm. This high population density has a direct impact on the country's infrastructure. The streets are frequently congested, and navigating through the cities is exhausting. Public transportation, already insufficient, becomes inadequate to meet the growing demand. Buses are always crowded, and many people have to wait for hours to find transportation. This not only affects productivity, but also contributes to the stress and frustration of the population. Overpopulation doesn't just affect infrastructure, but also generates a series of social problems. The pressure on public services is immense. Healthcare, education, and security are areas that suffer from a lack of resources. Hospitals and schools are overcrowded, and the quality of services provided is compromised. Often, citizens are forced to seek private alternatives, which may be unaffordable for the majority of the population. In Dhaka, the capital, the situation is even more critical. With a population exceeding 20 million inhabitants, the streets of Dhaka are frequently congested, and the transportation infrastructure is insufficient to handle the volume of people. Buses and minibuses, which are the main means of public transportation, are almost always full, forcing citizens to endure long waits and uncomfortable journeys. Often, people are compelled to opt for taxis or rickshaws, which are also overcrowded and, in many cases, do not offer adequate safety conditions. One of the most critical problems resulting from overpopulation in Bangladesh is the inadequate management of basic sanitation. In cities, the accumulation of garbage on the streets is a constant reality, not only degrading the urban landscape, but also creating serious public health problems. Solid waste dumped in inappropriate places promotes the proliferation of disease-carrying vectors, such as mosquitoes and rats, which transmit illnesses like dengue fever, leptospirosis, and malaria. This scenario mainly affects the most vulnerable populations, such as children and the elderly. The situation is even more critical in densely populated areas like Dhaka, where the lack of adequate bathrooms and proper waste disposal facilities is common. The result is the contamination of soil and water, worsening the sanitation crisis and creating a vicious cycle that perpetuates health problems. When there are no proper places for garbage disposal, the population adapts, leading to a harmful cycle of diseases that becomes increasingly difficult to break. Another major challenge is the limited access to drinking water, forcing entire communities to rely on contaminated sources. This results in recurring outbreaks of waterborne diseases such as diarrhea and cholera, which are significant causes of child mortality in the country. The absence of efficient sewage systems also contributes to the pollution of rivers and other water sources, further degrading the environment and harming the population's quality of life. Environmental degradation and health problems create a barrier to economic and social development, perpetuating a cycle of difficulties that affect Bangladesh as a whole. Bangladesh is often listed as one of the most polluted countries in the world, and this ranking directly reflects the living conditions of its population. One of the greatest challenges is air pollution, which severely affects urban areas, especially the capital, Dhaka. The city suffers from alarming levels of atmospheric pollutants, mainly caused by emissions from motor vehicles, factories, and industries. The air quality in Dhaka is regularly classified as unhealthy or even hazardous, with very high levels of harmful particles that can penetrate deep into into the lungs and circulatory system, causing serious respiratory problems. These pollutants affect millions of people, increasing cases of respiratory diseases such as asthma, bronchitis, and other lung problems. Children, the elderly, and individuals with pre-existing health conditions are particularly vulnerable, with many hospitals facing overcrowding during pollution peaks. Additionally, this situation harms the population's productivity, with more absences from work and school due to health issues related to air quality. The economic impact is also significant, as the costs of treating respiratory diseases burden the country's already limited healthcare system. In addition to air pollution, Bangladesh also faces critical challenges regarding water pollution. The rivers that flow through the country, especially in urban and industrial areas, are severely contaminated by toxic waste. The Buriganga, one of the main rivers that runs through Dhaka, is an alarming example of this crisis. It is heavily polluted by untreated sewage, domestic waste, and industrial waste. Industries such as tanneries and textile factories dump their chemical waste directly into the rivers without proper treatment. This not only makes the water unfit for human consumption, but also unsafe for basic activities like bathing and agricultural irrigation. Water pollution has devastating impacts on public health. Waterborne diseases such as diarrhea, cholera, and dysentery are common in areas where families lack access to safe drinking water. In many cases, the population depends on contaminated rivers and streams for their daily needs, which increases the risk of disease outbreaks. In rural communities, the situation is even more difficult, as sanitation networks are limited and clean water is scarce. Besides the consequences for human health, river pollution also significantly affects the environment. Fish species and aquatic plants, which need clean water to thrive, are impacted, reducing the amount of marine life in some areas. This directly affects families that depend on fishing for their income and food. With the decline in species, these communities may face challenges in maintaining their food security and economic stability. Living conditions in Bangladesh are extremely challenging for many people. In various urban areas, families live in overcrowded places where space is so limited that privacy becomes a rare luxury. This lack of space can make daily life even more stressful and complicated. Housing is often precarious, with makeshift constructions that do not provide adequate safety or comfort. Another concerning aspect is the lack of access to basic services such as healthcare and education. Many people do not have access to proper hospitals or clinics, making it difficult to receive medical care when needed. This is particularly worrying in a country where diseases can spread rapidly due to unsanitary living conditions. Additionally, school-aged children often do not have access to quality education, limiting their future opportunities and perpetuating the cycle of poverty. Economically, the situation is alarming. Most of the population lives on less than $1 per day, which is insufficient to meet basic needs. The minimum wage in Bangladesh is only $95 per month, a very low amount to cover essential expenses like food, housing, and transportation. This reality severely limits families' ability to invest in improvements for their homes or in education for their children. The low literacy rate in Bangladesh is one of the country's most significant challenges. With only 3 out of 10 people able to read and write, this situation creates a series of interconnected problems, especially in health and environmental areas. The lack of education not only limits individual opportunities, but also hinders awareness of crucial issues such as hygiene and sanitation. This reality perpetuates practices that compromise public health and worsen environmental problems. One of the most direct effects of low literacy is the difficulty in understanding basic information about health and hygiene. When people cannot read warnings or educational materials, they become more vulnerable to waterborne diseases and other health conditions. The lack of knowledge about the importance of simple practices, such as hand washing and treating water before consumption, contributes to the spread of diseases that could easily be prevented. In communities where access to education is limited, hygiene practices are often passed on informally, often without proper understanding of the risks involved. Education also plays a crucial role in economic empowerment. With low literacy levels, many individuals in Bangladesh struggle to find jobs that offer decent wages and safe working conditions. This perpetuates the cycle of poverty and limits communities' ability to invest in infrastructure and health improvements. Bengali society is marked by a cultural practice that, although legal, generates controversy: the possibility of a man having more than one wife. To address this issue and minimize its social and economic impacts, the government of Bangladesh implemented a tax system that increases with the number of wives. This strategy aims to discourage the practice by imposing a financial burden on men who choose this lifestyle, seeking a balanced approach to the situation. situation. However, the results of this policy are still uncertain. While some argue that taxation effectively reduces the number of multiple marriages, others believe the measure is insufficient to change behaviors deeply rooted in local culture. In many rural areas, the practice continues to be seen as a tradition, and many men may be willing to bear the additional costs. This situation has significant implications for social inequality. In a country where many families already face financial challenges, supporting multiple wives and children can further complicate economic life. Women in particular face additional difficulties, as they often have limited access to resources such as education and employment opportunities, which can perpetuate economic dependence. Moreover, the emotional environment in polygamous relationships can be tense. The competition for attention and resources among wives can create conflicts and affect their psychological well-being. This dynamic can create internal inequalities that make cohabitation even more challenging. Prostitution in Bangladesh is a complex and often overlooked issue, revealing a grim reality that few know about. In places like Daulatia, one of the largest legal prostitution districts, many women find themselves in extreme situations while searching for a dignified life. Many of them enter this world out of lack of options, trapped in a cycle of exploitation and hardship where the hope for a better future seems unattainable. Extreme poverty and the scarcity of job opportunities force these women to make difficult choices. The environment in which they live and work is often dangerous, and even with the legalization of prostitution, legal and social protection is scarce. They face discrimination and stigma, often being marginalized by society, which prefers to ignore their existence. Although they play an important role in the economy, these women are often treated as invisible, without proper recognition for their contributions. Beyond prostitution, another cultural issue raising concerns in Bangladesh is cousin marriage. This practice, common in many communities, is seen as a way to strengthen family ties and preserve heritage. Many families encourage these unions from childhood, believing it ensures financial and emotional stability. However, this centuries-old tradition carries significant risks, which are often ignored. Consanguineous marriages, like those between cousins, can increase the likelihood of genetic and congenital diseases. This phenomenon is already a reality in some areas of Bangladesh, where the health conditions resulting from these marriages have a profound impact on people's lives. Problems like congenital malformations, neurological difficulties, and rare diseases may be more common in these unions. And the video ends here. Which of these curiosities did you find most surprising? Please share your thoughts on the dark side of Bangladesh in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave a like. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that's appearing on your screen now. I'm sure you'll enjoy the content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.